Irwin Allen was at the peak of his success in the mid-1970s, with films like The Poseidon Adventure and The Towering Inferno. In 1975, Allen became interested in doing a film version of The Day the World Ended, which was a novel written by English television writers Gordon Thomas and Max Morgan-Witz, which was a 1969 non-fiction account of the Mount Pelée eruption in Martinique in 1902, a disaster which killed 30,000 people. Irwin Allen found the book literally impossible to put down. Irwin Allen bought the rights to the novel in 1975, and he planned to make a film version of the novel straight away. Irwin Allen was at this time a busy man who had his name on many future productions, and also announced he would do The Swarm and a sequel to The Poseidon Adventure, simply titled Poseidon 2. There were 3 planned films he wanted to produce through 20th Century Fox. Not only that, Allen also planned to do a Towering Inferno sequel, but this would ultimately fall through, as star Steve McQueen, who was still under contract to Allen, refused to do a follow-up movie, so the project was ultimately scrapped. Irwin Allen hired Carl Foreman and Sterling Siliphant to adapt the Day the World Ended novel into a screenplay. But by this time, the project wasn't really an historical dramatization of the Mount Pelée eruption, but a more fictionalized version, and it was turned into a story about a resort hotel near an active volcano which erupts. While Allen was working on his killer bee epic, The Swarm, he would also start pre-production for 20th Century Fox on The Day the World Ended in Hawaii. Filming was going to start in March of 1976, and the film was estimated to be ready by Christmas of 1976. But studio head Alan Ladd Jr. thought the disaster genre had run its course and decided not to finance the 2 films. So Allen signed a 2-picture deal with Warner Brothers, who would take both projects on. The first film made would be The Swarm, but unfortunately the film would be a box office bomb. Maybe it would be different with his volcano disaster film with the new title of When Time Ran Out, but unfortunately the film would also bomb at the box office. When Time Ran Out would be a huge production with a mammoth budget of $20 million, which would be Irwin Allen's biggest budget to date. Ernest Borgnine, who starred in the film, claimed that the film's special effects looked so cheap because so much of the budget went toward location shooting. James Goldstone would direct. His credits included the original series Star Trek episode Where No Man Has Gone Before. He directed feature films, including the thriller Roller Coaster in 1977. Of course, with many of Irwin Allen's productions, it had to have an all-star cast with some of the best actors in the business. As early as 1975, they were thinking of casting big stars, including Charlton Heston, Yul Brynner, Henry Fonda, and Jennifer Jones. They decided to go with a number of actors who had already been in Irwin Allen's film productions, including Paul Newman in the lead, Jacqueline Bisset, William Holden, Ed Albert, Red Buttons, Barbara Carrera, Burgess Meredith, Ernest Borgnine, to James Franciscus from Beneath the Planet of the Apes, and even Pat Morita, Sheila Allen, Irwin Allen's wife, who would in fact appear in most of Irwin Allen's productions, would also appear in the film. Paul Newman had already acted alongside William Holden in The Towering Inferno, and also co-starred with James Franciscus in Marooned and Concord Affair 79 in 1979. Ernest Borgnine had also previously starred alongside Red Buttons in The Poseidon Adventure. During production for 6 days, William Holden was hospitalized in order to treat his alcoholism, when director James Goldstone convinced producer Irwin Allen that Holden was a great danger to himself and others. When Time Ran Out, unfortunately, was a commercial failure. The film cost an estimated $20 million to produce, grossing almost $4 million at the box office. Warner Brothers, in desperation, insisted they cut the film for international release from 121 minutes down to 104 minutes. Sadly, these cuts would make the film far too expensive to restore. This shortened cinema version would end up being the DVD release version, and there would also be an 144-minute extended cut of the film, released on VHS in 1986 and 1994. When the film was shown on TV for the first time, deleted scenes and additional footage were added. But oddly enough, the title of the film would be changed to Earth's Final Fury once it debuted on national television. Even though the film was a commercial failure, the film was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Costume Design. Reviews for When Time Ran Out were terrible. Critic Leonard Maltin would dub the film When Ideas Ran Out. When Time Ran Out would represent the death of the disaster epic, until the genre was resurrected in the 1990s. Paul Newman would later confess in interviews that When Time Ran Out would be the only film he ever did for a paycheck. He would call it That Volcano Movie. He would also say that he and the cast knew it would be a flop on the first day of shooting. When Time Ran Out was a massive failure, and the film would sadly be Irwin Allen's last theatrical film release, and truly the last of the disaster epics of the 1970s. Allen would be dubbed the Master of Disaster, and rightly so. He deserves this title. Irwin Allen inspired a whole new generation of filmmakers. As a filmmaker, he was certainly a showman and liked his productions big. Even his TV productions, like Land of the Giants and The Time Tunnel, were too big for the small screen. He also loved his special effects. He would usually spare no expense, even if it meant the film would go under and make the studio broke. And this can also show you that bigger is not usually better. It can be a film's downfall. My name's Jonathan. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and like what you see on my channel, please subscribe, and if you would like to become a patron on my Patreon, click on the link below.